For most people alive today, working 8 hours a day feels completely normal. You wake up, go to work, spend 8 hours there, and then return home. This rhythm feels so natural that most people never question it. But here is something strange. For more than 95% of human history, no one worked like this. Not hunters, not farmers, not craftsmen, not merchants. The 8-hour workday did not slowly evolve from human needs. It did not appear because people suddenly decided it was healthy or fair. It was designed. And it was not designed for humans. It was designed for machines. This video is not about motivation. It is not about productivity tips. And it is not about how to work harder or work less. It is about why modern work exists in the form it does and how a mechanical system reshaped human life so completely that we now mistake it for something natural. To understand this, we must forget modern jobs for a moment, forget offices, forget factories, forget schedules. And instead, we must ask a much deeper question. What did work even mean before machines needed us to behave in a specific way? Before industrial machines existed, work did not follow a fixed schedule. For most of human history, work was task-based, not time-based. People worked until a task was completed, not until a clock told them to stop. A farmer worked until the field was planted. A fisherman worked until the nets were full. A craftsman worked until an object was finished. When the task was done, work stopped. There was no concept of working hours as we understand them today. There was no expectation that labor must be continuous, uninterrupted, or evenly distributed across the day. Work followed natural rhythms. Sunlight mattered, weather mattered, seasons mattered, human energy mattered. People rested when the task was finished. They paused when conditions changed. They adapted constantly. This does not mean life was easy or comfortable. Life was often harsh, but the structure of work was flexible and responsive. Time was not something people sold. It was something people lived inside. There were busy days and slow days. There were intense seasons and quiet seasons. But there was no universal rule that said, you must give 8 hours of every day, regardless of conditions. That rule did not exist because there was no system that required it. Everything changed when work stopped being about tasks and started being about continuous output. Machines introduced a new problem that humans had never faced before. Machines do not get tired, they do not slow down naturally, they do not adapt to human rhythms. Machines work best when they run continuously. A machine that stops is a machine that wastes money. Once large industrial machines appeared, production no longer depended on human pace. It depended on machine efficiency. And this created a fundamental conflict. Humans were irregular. Machines were not. Factories needed predictability. They needed workers to arrive at the same time, work at the same speed, and repeat the same actions without interruption. But humans were not designed for this. People naturally work in bursts. They slow down. They pause. They adjust. From the factory's perspective, this was a problem. The solution was not to adapt machines to humans. The solution was to reshape humans to fit machines. And this is where time itself became the control mechanism. Before industrialization, time was mostly experienced, not measured. People knew the time of day by the sun. They knew seasons by the land. Precise timekeeping was unnecessary for most forms of work. Factories changed that. A factory could not operate efficiently if workers arrived whenever they wanted. It needed synchronized behavior. Clocks became central. Time was divided into identical units: minutes, hours, shifts. This allowed factory owners to do something entirely new. They could measure human labor itself. Once time could be measured, it could be priced. Once it could be priced, it could be bought. Workers were no longer paid for completing tasks. They were paid for being present for a fixed amount of time. This was revolutionary. It meant that obedience mattered more than skill. Consistency mattered more than creativity. Endurance mattered more than intelligence. The clock became the invisible supervisor. The 8-hour workday did not appear because it was optimal for humans. It emerged as a compromise inside an industrial system that demanded constant output. Factories initially pushed workers far beyond 8 hours. 10, 12, even 16-hour shifts were common. This caused exhaustion, accidents, and resistance. Eventually, industrial societies settled on 8 hours as a balance point. Long enough to keep machines running efficiently, short enough to prevent total collapse. The famous slogan was 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we will. This sounds humane, but the underlying logic was still mechanical. The question was never, what does the human body need? The question was, how long can humans reliably function inside a machine-driven system? 8 hours was the answer. Over time, people stopped seeing the system as imposed. Children were trained to sit still, to follow schedules, to obey bells and signals. Schools mirrored factories. Class periods replaced work shifts. Bells replaced factory whistles. This trained people long before they entered the workforce. Eventually, people began to judge themselves by industrial standards. Being busy became a moral virtue. Rest became guilt. Time not used productively felt wasted. The machine no longer needed to force discipline. Humans enforced it themselves. Many people believe we no longer live in an industrial world, but the structure remains. Even digital work follows industrial logic. Fixed schedules, continuous availability, time-based compensation. The machine has changed form, but not function. Understanding this does not mean rejecting work. It means recognizing that the system was designed, not natural, and anything designed can be redesigned. The 8-hour workday was not created because humans needed it. It was created because machines demanded it. Once you see this, modern work looks very different, not inevitable, not natural, but engineered. And that realization changes how you see your time. Because your time was never meant to be measured like a machine.